and welcome back to episode 3 of Boss by Bronte. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that I touched on with Lily, which is getting started as a social media manager. So a lot of the people that I work with at the moment are current social media managers who are looking to, set up their back-end systems a little bit better, streamline everything. They are looking to scale their social media business into more of an agency structure. But I also have a massive pool of people who don't have any experience in social media or don't know the first step to take, and they really want to get into the space. So I want to dedicate today's episode to really just talking through that a little bit. I'm going to focus on the 3 biggest things that really hold people back from getting started, and then also give you a little bit of a game plan if that is you and you are wanting to move into the social media space and become a social media manager. So one of the big things that come up for people who are getting started in social media or just in business in general is imposter syndrome. And this is something that gets mentioned to me constantly by students or people in my DMs or anyone who is kind of looking to take that next step of their career. And I think the biggest game changer for me in this space, so when I was starting out, I definitely had imposter syndrome. I felt like everyone knew something more that I wasn't quite getting. And I was like, how did they learn that? How did they understand that? What did I miss, but I'm not seeing it? And I think that what I learned over the years was that feeling, it doesn't really ever go away. It will show up in different ways throughout the process of your business and your life. But understanding that is just an internal feeling. It is actually not a indication of what is happening outside of your body. All it is a feeling. And if you can really learn to kind of harness that and take control of that and recognize that it is a feeling and that's all it is actually not telling you anything about what other people are doing or what you're not doing, then it makes it a lot easier to kind of silence it or push it aside or recognize it and move on and still take those steps anyway. So I think that the more that you can prove that to yourself and prove that it is just a feeling, prove that it is almost a lie, I guess, that your body's telling yourself to keep you safe and keep you comfortable, the more times that you push through that and you show yourself that it is false and it is a lie and it's not actually accurate, the more you learn to trust yourself. So it is one of those things that when you first feel it, it can feel crippling and it can feel like it's holding you back from making any sort of move, but it's making those moves that will actually show you that, it doesn't need to hold you back. I think it's also not necessarily a bad thing to be feeling it at the start. And the reason I say that is because it's a little bit of an initiation into running a business. It is a massive mental game to run a business, to show up, to be vulnerable, to, put your face behind a brand. Everything that goes into building a business, it is a very, very big mental game. So when I think of those initial phases of imposter syndrome and fear and everything else that, kind of comes up when you're starting out, I do think of it as a bit of an initiation. If you can get over those stages and you can still push yourself, that is setting you up for success in business. So I actually think that it's something that can be embraced in the right way. So I know that is all easier said than done, but the more that you do sort of surround yourself in this space, the more all of this will make sense. And I think the other side of me really realizing where imposter syndrome sat for me was having conversations with people that I thought were doing incredibly, incredibly well and the people that were probably causing me to have imposter syndrome. So, if I was following 5 incredible, incredible women in my local area killing it in business, and I would be looking at them being like, oh my gosh, like, how can I have that success? What am I missing? I don't even want to post my wins. I don't even want to post my face because they're doing so well and maybe I shouldn't even be here and like, who am I to have a business? Whatever else is sort of coming up for you. But then if I would catch up with them and I would be like, oh, you're doing so amazing in business. Like everything you're doing is incredible. And they would be like, really? You think so? I was so nervous about this. I was so nervous to post that. Or, it's actually not going that well on the back end. I really, really need to get more clients because I'm, struggling a bit at the moment or whatever else. And seeing the other side of it has always made me just feel more comfortable with the fact that there is another side to it. And I think the more you have those conversations with people and the more you see that what they're showing up with online, which they're allowed to do, it's not about being inauthentic. That is part of business and part of marketing and part of showcasing your brand in the right way. But when you do understand and you take on that responsibility for yourself to recognize in every situation there is another side, it does make it easier. So now even when I look at really, really big, incredibly successful people online, I know that they also have another side and that they probably do struggle with big things and that even when they're talking about the successes, they've had a lot of failures in the run as well, and that there are things that they're also insecure about. So it's just constantly reminding yourself of these things, and the more you put yourself in those situations, the more you will see that to be true. And honestly, I do actually think that's like one of the only ways through imposter syndrome is to actually throw yourself at it and actually put yourself in situations where you can just understand the actual truth a little bit more and not just rely on what your body is trying to tell you, which, as we said, is just to keep you safe and just to keep you comfortable. I think the other thing to note here is that imposter syndrome in itself is normally caused by something that is internal to you, and understanding where that's coming from gives you somewhere that you can actually focus. So is it, you're actually feeling like just a lack of self-worth or a lack of confidence, and then actually focusing on the tactics that you can introduce to overcome those things rather than just looking at it as, oh, I have imposter syndrome and that's where I'm currently at. It's like, okay, well, where is that coming from? And is there things that you can do to overcome that? So if it's a confidence thing, what can you do today to start to build that confidence up and not hide behind a title like imposter syndrome? When I was first launching the agency, I actually remember definitely being like, why did I launch an agency? I don't actually even really know the difference between an agency and freelance other than, I offer extra services. And I was feeling really insecure. I think it was imposter syndrome, but I was feeling really insecure that there were so many different things in the industry that I had just thrown myself into. There's so many different services that I was now offering and being talked about and having clients come to me for, and, massive campaigns, and all of it was still quite new to me on some level. And I definitely was feeling like, okay, maybe I've taken this step too quickly. But what I did, and this is what I would encourage you to do as well if this is where yours is stemming from, is I just realized I felt like there were certain things I didn't know. And so I was really fearful of having certain conversations because I was like, what if they ask about this and I don't know the answer? And I think that's where mine really stemmed from. So what I did one day, I sat down and I literally was like, okay, I'm going to pinpoint the thing, because I knew a lot and I knew I did have some really amazing experience behind me. So I was like, there's got to be particular specific things that are making me feel like this. So I sat down and I wrote a list of them, and a bunch of them were things about Facebook ads that I felt like I didn't really understand, like how pixels actually track, things like that, that I was like, I feel like I really want to know this stuff because that's what's making me feel like I don't have enough knowledge at the moment. So I wrote a list, and then there was honestly like 6 things on this list. Like, that was it. And I looked at the list and I was like, that's almost pathetic. Like, I feel ridiculous that I have let this feeling overwhelm me. When I actually write it down, there's like 6 things on here. So I then spent the next couple weeks deep diving into each of those until I could check them off and feel like I had started the journey of really understanding them better. And then I just felt so much more confident in it. And I actually know that that tactic works because I've had a few social managers come to me and be like, I'm feeling really like I don't have space in this industry at the moment. And a lot of it has come down to things like they don't know how to edit reels at the moment, or they don't know how to find good trending audio, or they, don't feel like they know the latest program. So it's like, okay, well, if that is all it is, then that is a really easy thing to overcome. So sometimes you just need to also focus on exactly what it is that is making you feel that level of insecurity. Focus on that, learn that, and then you can sort of push through it comfortably. I think the last thing I would say on this one is just get comfortable with taking action even when you are uncomfortable. And again, that's why it comes back to this like business initiation level, because that is a lot of what business is. And even me selling the agency, restarting a new brand, I have had to do that at every step of the journey so far. I really have had days where I have been sitting there being like, what am I actually doing? And why am I doing this? And what are my goals? And is it going to go the way I want it to go? But you just have to, again, recognize that feeling and be like, okay, that's fine that I feel like that. What am I actually meant to be doing today, though? And it's like, send an email and do 3 social posts. And you have just got to get comfortable with taking those steps and doing those actions, even when you're not 100% feeling it. And again, the more that you do that, the more that you're proving to yourself that this is all you actually need to do. It is just seeing the outcome of pushing yourself in those ways. The more you do it, the more you realize that that is actually all it is. It's all one big game of just pushing yourself and being consistent and showing up even when you don't 100% want to show up. The second big thing that I see a lot of beginners do is treat their business like a hobby in the early days. And I touched on this in the first episode when I was talking through my story, because I definitely did this and it really, really held me back from growing. It wasn't until I actually flicked my mindset into seeing it as a business that I was actually able to scale and grow and charge more and get better clients and do everything that I set out to do with my business. And I know that it's an industry that, because it does have such a low barrier to entry, as in you can literally start by just posting on social media saying, hey, I'm offering social media services, get a client, start posting on their account. In terms of things that you really, really need set up to offer those services, there isn't a lot there. But I think, unfortunately, that makes some people think that, cool, I'll just, throw up a post, or I'll just chuck a logo out there and start offering it. You actually really need to think about this as a business. And if you want it to scale and you want it to achieve this big life for you, that have freedom and you have money and you have lifestyle and you have amazing clients and all of these things, you're not going to get that by putting in zero effort to actually setting up and structuring your business. So if this is an actual business that you want to grow and this is where you want your career to be, you do really need to take it seriously and put the time and effort into building that space. And what that really means is defining what your business looks like and feels like and what your offering is, and really getting clear on who your audience actually is and who it is that you're targeting and what it means to partner with you as a brand. Because there is not a shortage of social media managers out there. If I wanted a social media manager for my brand tomorrow, there is thousands and thousands. So you really need to define yourself beyond just being like, oh yeah, I can post strategic content on your account. What does it actually mean to partner with you specifically and your brand? And the exciting part of that with starting your own business is that you actually do get to define that in full. So have a look at other brands in the space, have a look at other brands in general, and really think about how you want yours to show up in the industry and how you want to define yours. It's not like a clothing store where if I was to start a clothing store today, I would have to go out and, buy probably $20,000 worth of stock and find a lease and do a fit out and get a checkout system and staff and everything else. And if I did that, I would be investing, $50,000 in getting this business set up with all branding and everything else. And if I did that, you've got to think about how seriously I would be taking making that business successful. I would be literally doing every single thing that I can to make that business work and make it thrive, and looking for every opportunity under the sun. And I think that that is actually a good thing. When you do invest in a business and you do take it seriously to that capacity, you are obviously going to put in more time and effort. And that is really the mindset that you've got to have, no matter how easy it feels to set up a business in social media. How can you, ask people to invest in your business and take it seriously if you're not doing that in the first place? So that is a really important step that I do see a lot of beginners overlook and sort of naively just think it's going to be really simple and easy to grow, where it's a crucial step that you absolutely cannot overlook. The third big thing that I see really hold people back from getting into the social media space is being unsure if they have kind of the right skills, even if they don't have experience. So I'm having chats pretty much daily in my DMs at the moment with people who have all sorts of background or all sorts of experience, being like, I would love to get into social media, but I've never done anything like this before. I haven't done marketing, or I'm not super sure what I could bring to the table at this stage. And I absolutely love those conversations, because quite quickly you can see there's so many different angles that will support you in this industry. I actually did a post about this the other day, and I'm just going to touch on some of the things that I mentioned in it, because I do actually think they're really, really important. So social media consumption, if you're someone who is, religiously on TikTok or Instagram, or you love looking at brands, you love keeping up with trends, that is really, really going to help you, because you're actually going to understand the way social media is structured probably a lot more than you even realize at the moment. When you start to look into strategy, you'll be able to sort of connect the dots, I guess, between what you're seeing brands doing and trends you've seen rise on social media and what the actual strategy was behind that. So even if you don't know how that strategy works at the moment, that is something that you can learn, and you're going to pick up on it and really understand it quite quickly when you do get that insight. So there's also niche experience. So any sort of industry that you've worked in up until now, you can use that knowledge to support you as you move into social media. So for instance, if you've always worked in hospitality or cafes, you can initially niche into that space and people will 100% pay you for your knowledge and for your insight on that industry, because it means that it's going to cut out a lot of time for that client having to educate you. And you can actually go into them and talk directly in their language and say, hey, I know as a restaurant, you probably struggle with XYZ, and it's really important to highlight this and this, and that, your biggest draw card is your Friday nights, but you actually really need to also fill your weekday lunches, and coming up with some sort of tactics to do that is going to be a super important part of our social strategy. Going into it with that industry knowledge makes you super, super valuable beyond just your social media skills. So I see a lot of people who are coming from different backgrounds, starting with that background as their niche, and it can be a really, really powerful and easy way to transition into social media. I also love to see anyone who's got any sort of like creativity focus or aesthetic eye, because so much of socials is based on visuals and creative angles. So you just need to learn how to tap into that from a, content or social media angle. And then on the flip side of that, everyone sort of thinks that it is very, very, creative focused and content focused. And that is a really, really big part of it. But I've also seen a lot who are super numbers focused succeed exceptionally well in the social media space, because at the end of the day, a lot of it is just a numbers game. You're looking for engagement, you're looking for saves and shares, you're looking for reach, you're looking for follower count. And pretty much the content side of it is just your vehicle to achieve those numbers. So people who are very analytical and numbers based can succeed exceptionally well, because they really do, break down the numbers and have a look at what worked and why it worked and how it worked and how to make it work better next time. So it's really just figuring out what your strengths already are, and then figuring out where you really need to focus in learning. So majority of new people will really need to understand, strategic content and how it actually works to achieve your client goals. But beyond that, there are going to be so many things that you will already have that deep understanding of, or have skills in, or have experience in, that you can bring to the table and then build from that. So you're not starting from scratch. So if you've resonated with any of these three major areas that I consistently see holding people back, hopefully this can give you some initial guidance. So firstly, we've got the imposter syndrome, overcoming that mental game, and understanding what that actually looks like and means for you as an individual, because that will be different for everyone. Firstly, how that feels, and secondly, where that's actually coming from for you. And also recognizing that by overcoming that, it's not only going to help you get started, but it is going to help you remain successful by getting used to having to play the mental game with yourself. Second one is treating it like a hobby. So as I mentioned, you do really need to take that seriously. And it actually is really similar to something that I talk to people about with social media in general all the time. So when I'm talking to a business owner who is like, I'm not getting any results from social media, and I have a look at their accounts and they have posted, 3 times in the last 2 months, and I'm like, okay, so what are you hoping to get out of this account? And they're like, well, I want sales and I want a community and I want blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, so you're putting in 2% of effort right now, and what you're wanting back is 100% results. Those two don't align. So if you want to get 100% out of your social media, you've got to show up 100% and put that time and effort in. And it is the exact same with your business. If you are wanting it to give you this incredible lifestyle and achieve all your dreams and have, the best high paying clients, you have actually got to show up in that space first and build that out and create a space for that to happen. And then thirdly, being unsure if, you have the right skills to actually succeed in this space. I teach social media management because it is a teachable skill. And if you can recognize what you're already bringing to the table in terms of your experience and your skill set, it's going to give you an initial angle that will make you stand out to your clients and with your own brand. So kind of utilizing that and coming into it with some sort of confidence that you aren't starting from absolute scratch, but recognizing where you are coming in with some sort of understanding that maybe gives you a little bit of an angle, but then also understanding all of the areas that you don't quite understand yet, that you are going to need to learn and invest time into sort of upskilling in. And being curious and excited by that. It is completely okay to be a beginner and to be starting at this level. We all started there one day. One post that I did years ago was the very first post that I did on a client account. So try not to let that overwhelm you or make you feel like, you shouldn't be in the space. That is where we all start. So if you have listened to this so far and you're like, okay, resonating, didn't realize that was holding me back, or that was going to play such a big role in me not succeeding, maybe this is an area I want to explore a little bit more, I'm going to give you just a super quick game plan of sort of the initial steps that I would be taking. So firstly, I would definitely recommend to get set up early. Do not wait until later because it does make it so much harder. So what I really mean by that is if you're thinking, oh, okay, well, next year I'm going to start being a social media manager, or I'll wait till I finish my degree, or I'll wait till I wrap up this job, whatever it is, actually get started now because there is quite a lot of setup. As we said, you're not treating it as a hobby, you're treating it as a business. So setting up things like if you're going to have a website or a social page or a brand, or all of your assets and templates that you need to have in place, or your proposal system, legal documents, whatever it is, all of those little bits and pieces, start getting started on it all now so that by the time you are ready to, step into the space and start talking about your services and onboarding clients, you're not quickly trying to pull it together behind the scenes, because that is going to affect, what you're offering actually is, how you're working with clients, but also how much they're willing to pay you if it feels messy and it doesn't feel organized. Secondly, focus on really understanding organic strategy and content. It is one thing to post on a client's account, things that look aesthetic and things that are trending. And it is another to sort of take that a step further and actually understand how that works strategically for them. And where that will really start to play a role is when you have clients coming to you being like, hey, the account looks really great, but I really need to launch this campaign, or I would really like to see our saves increase, or our shares increase, or our followers increase. And if you don't understand strategy, you're not going to know how to have that conversation, either to introduce strategies that will achieve that for the client, or to guide the client in, a better direction by explaining to them that strategy is not actually going to work for their account based on what you've mapped out for them. So I do think that is really important, and that is what sets you apart from someone who is just posting content to an account, to actually be someone who has a strategic angle and understanding. Thirdly, use your experiences and skills to find a niche or a focus area. The main reason for that, and I don't believe everyone needs a niche, to be honest, but it does definitely make it easier when you're in the space, because you're talking directly to one person. You can really focus on their pain points and their skills, and it does often make it a little bit easier to charge a bit more because, as I mentioned, people are willing to pay more for those insights and for that experience. And lastly, and I think this just goes for anyone in business or starting a business in general, don't overthink it. Literally just take it one step at a time. Try and have fun with it. Don't let, the fears and the imposter syndrome and the not knowing what you're doing, and let those thoughts really take over to the point that they stop you entirely, because all business is literally just being consistent at taking one step at a time and putting one foot in front of the other. And I know that sounds cheesy, but that is literally all it is. So even if I have days or weeks where I'm looking around being like, I actually don't really know where I should be focusing at the moment, I've kind of got a goal, but I'm feeling a bit hazy in that at the moment. As long as I'm taking steps forward in whatever direction, in, whatever capacity in my business, that path does show itself, and you do kind of get clearer just by taking those steps. So that's all it is even if right now you're like, what is the first thing I'm supposed to do? Figure out what you want to offer to a client, what you want the value of yourself to be, what you want the value of this business to be for yourself, and then any single thing that you can do to start moving towards that today, take that step, whether that's jumping on Canva and designing a logo, whether that's researching what goes into an organic strategy, whether that's having a look at brands and seeing if you can figure out what kind of strategy they're using. Any single step is going to help you move forward and is going to make the next step more obvious. So I think that just goes for business and life in general, but that is 100% the strategy that I use no matter what stage of business I'm at. I hope you guys have enjoyed it today and gotten something out of it. Please do shoot me a message on Instagram at Dash Academy with a __ if you've enjoyed this, if it resonated, if you have questions, if you're getting started. I would love to hear from you and hear how you went with today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in.